Hello everybody, this is Erica with Sabon Designs, and today we are going to make the Tree of Life. Wood grain shelf sitter and hanger. It comes two different ways. This is one I have finished. It has walnut around the edge. We have some maple or birch, excuse me, I'm not sure which, cherry leaves, and a sapele tree. And this one is a little more challenging than others, and that's because of all these cutouts, which I'll explain more as we go. This one is the only one I have completely finished. Well, not even completely, because it is going to be a hanger, and that still needs to be put on for final pictures. But I have a couple more I have put together that I'm going to show you, and then we are going to assemble one for the camera and for you guys today. So this one is 11.5 inches tall and wide, because it's a circle. And get that out of the way. This is the other larger one I did. This one is a shelf sitter. So it has a base that I have built, and this will slide right in. Voila. So this is the second option. And for the outside edge, of course this one isn't finished yet, so this is still raw, still needs sanded and sprayed. But for the outside edge, I was just noticing how burned that is because it's not sanded yet. You have a couple options. The first one, you saw a little swirly design. This one has an Irish blessing on it. Says, may God give you, for every storm a rainbow, for every tear a smile, for every care a promise, and a blessing in each trial. For every problem life sends, a faithful friend to share, for every sigh a sweet song, and an answer for each prayer. So that is an option around the edge, or there's an option for nothing. It can just be a blank frame. This one is mahogany around the edge, cherry for the inner frame, and then we have, again, sapele for the tree, because sapele makes such lovely trees, and cedar on the leaves. So we get that really pretty purple that will be more reddish brown over time. So excited to get that one finished. And then this is the second size. So this one's a little smaller. I believe it's 8.5 inches. I just made this, but I don't remember. Yes, 8.5 inches. This one I did with cherry, mahogany. This is hickory in the middle, and walnut. So kind of an opposite, where we have the lighter wood on the tree, which I thought might be interesting. We'll see how it comes out. And then there's this one that I'm just not entirely sold on. We're going to see how it finishes up after it's sanded and sprayed. I did the leaves green, and I did this with just birch, and I watered down some green paint mixed with some black because I wanted it a little bit darker green. Didn't make it super dark, but it's not that bright Irish green. I guess maybe it still is a little. I thought it would be a little more olivey, but I think with that light birch, putting it on there, maybe if I had put it on a different color of wood, it might have looked a little bit different. I don't know. Something to experiment with. So I'm not sure how this one's going to turn out. I'll be interested to see, but I do like how that green plays off the cedar on the outside. Again, cedar, cherry on the inner frame, walnut for the tree, and then this painted birch, basically watercolored birch. About 4 parts water to 1 part paint is what I used there. And I did a couple coats because I felt like it looked like I colored it with a marker. Again, we're going to see how that turns out. But today we are going to build this one. So this is walnut with the Irish blessing engraved around it, birch for the inner frame, sapele for the trunk, and cherry for the leaves. This one is a stand-up one, so we are also going to build a base. The base comes with 3 pieces and a jig. So actually, let's start. No, we're not going to start with the base. We're going to do the base while this sits a little bit later. So first thing I do every time I make anything like this is I am going to dry fit everything. Make sure I have all my pieces. Nothing looks, I caught a little edge there, it looks like with the laser, but that'll be fine. It will sand out. But I'm just taking a look, making sure I have everything ready to go. And then sometimes I like to do a little tablecloth trick. With this one, I'm not going to. I'm going to take my pieces off and just kind of set them approximately in the area that they go, so I can find these quicker. If you like puzzles, my designs are right up your alley. So as I'm taking these out, the first thing we're going to put on is the frame and the pieces that hit the frame. And this really is, if you get this off a little, this piece isn't going to fit right, which means this piece isn't going to fit, and kind of domino effect right down the line. So we want to get this first part done carefully and correctly so we don't have problems later. All right, so now that I have taken everybody off here, I'm going to pull this off too, but I'm going to look and see what pieces are kind of attaching to my frame. So this one dips in a little. You can see that little bit of cutout. This one is going to dip into the frame, so we want to be sure we get that one on straight. This piece over here, and then this tiny little leaf. So these 4 pieces are, and the 2 outside frames are what I'm going to focus on first. What I found with gluing these others, I did a little differently than I usually do my wood grains. Because of all the cutout and these smaller pieces and all these little roots and stuff, I'm applying the glue to the piece first, which is a little different for me. Usually I smear it all over, put everything on, and then we shuffle around and make sure everything fits. That's a little tougher to do with these bigger pieces and with all these little open edges. But I will start putting glue on the frame. So this is Titebond multi-surface glue. It has worked well for these. Does a great bond and doesn't dry right away. So it gives us a few minutes of working time to move some stuff around. And I'm going to go ahead and hit a couple of these edges where those pieces are going to sit. And I'm not known for my glue skills, so take everything you see me do with a grain of salt. All right. This goes on. This one's pretty self-explanatory and easy to put on. Obviously lines up well. The ones that go all the way around can be a little tougher to line up that edge, so I'm looking for my oh, excuse me. Whew. Must be the dust in there. I'm looking for my grains that I've cut horizontally there to line up when I do that. And really, if you got it off a little bit on this, probably wouldn't show so much. The words probably would, because they kind of end there and they'd be noticeable. So I'm going to set this on here, and I'm going to look. All these score lines that are here are so important to make sure we are lined up. So I'm really focusing on that little edge of that leaf. Now looking over here, making sure, whoops, I am in a good spot there. All right, and I actually put a little glue here, so I'm going to go ahead and stick that one leaf in there. And now, oh, better not keep the glue cap in my mouth if I'm going to keep talking. I am just going to add that little bit of glue. And it doesn't need as much, and this is kind of why I have liked putting these on individually, except that I get a little much and it comes off. I don't have to have as much glue because it's not going to dry as I'm working. Or if I smeared it all over, I could probably use a little less glue. And that looks lined up nicely. I'm sorry if I get my head in the picture at all. I'm looking over to see how things are fitting. Piece number 2, well 3, going in right there. And these are going to slide around a little bit as we work, so we've just got to be careful that they don't slide and we don't catch it and get them back into, or not get them back into place is always the concern, because then they dry and they're there forever. Now, when I get that little glue squeezing out, always keep toothpicks right in my little work desk drawer here. And if we need to, I can kind of go in and clean up any of that oozing glue. It's going to dry clear, but you don't want it sticking out because you will be able to see that. Sometimes it's easier if it's dried a little bit, then it kind of goobers off, clumps up, goobery, and comes off that way. That is, I'm sure, a very technical term. All right, now I think I'm going to just go in and do the rest of my pieces of the tree. And I'm going to kind of go a little quick here and just get these on in about the right spot, and then we'll do some adjustments and make sure everything is lining up. Make sure I'm putting my glue on the right side. And that twisty bit, this is the tricky part, is not getting enough glue but not getting too much glue on these roots, which I'm sure I'll have some cleanup to do there. All right, so I'm going to go around, clean up any of that oozing glue from the sides, and then make adjustments. So this guy's already slid a little bit, so we just want to keep putting him back into place. This guy's still looking good. Yeah, these went right into place. Alright, and the other pieces of the tree, we have a little piece here, here, and another swirly right there. And I'll get him in place. And these little in-between pieces. So once we get these wood pieces on, I'm going to go find all these pieces that go in between versus these leaves that are just kind of sitting off on their own. Like this piece goes in between, this piece goes in between two other pieces. So we're going to do those next. And again, that's just so if we need to make any adjustments because they don't fit right, we have the time to do that before the glue gets too dry. And this is that guy right there. So I'm going to get him. And this one hits multiple pieces right up there. And we're going to slide him in. And see, he's not fitting quite right because this piece was a little off. There we go. So that's why we want to hit all those. See, and knock this guy out of place. Nice. And then that guy right there goes in between the two. Make sure he's going to fit in there, and he does. Perfect. Now well, maybe this little piece should go in as well. And then we have all of those kind of in between pieces. Everything else opens up to the outside. And this is where, other than this is kind of big, and the glue dries faster than on the smaller ornaments, this is where it becomes a little more challenging because you don't have as much to hold them together, if that makes sense. So they can slide off really easily. So as I'm gluing these, I'm going back and I'm double checking that my other pieces have not moved. I can get this in there, slide him around a little to get that glue all spread out. And we are just going to hit all of these. And kind of push them up against where they're going to go. So you can see that one's already sliding around. This guy right here is probably the worst because the only little bit that he touches is this tiny little bit right here against this branch. So he will probably slide out quite a few times as we're putting other things together here around him and bumping into him. I think the shelf sitter lilies are another one that has these same types of challenges with having so much open space and the petals being so similar in shape. None of these leaves are the same, so you shouldn't have trouble matching them up. A couple of them are close. This one could be close, but everything will match exactly. If something's not fitting right, then something's wrong. Maybe an adjustment needs to be made. Something's a little wonky, so things aren't fitting up tight together. Or you've got a piece in the wrong spot. So I do talk about kerf in these videos too. I do not add kerf to my files just because everybody's laser is different. And I want people to be able to create what I'm making without having any specific knowledge. If you understand kerf in your machine and want to add kerf, so all these pieces are going to fit a little tighter, you go right ahead and do that, and I bet it will look great. But I feel like what we create without kerf looks great too. And so you don't have to feel like you have to do that on your machine. And I'm sorry if I'm getting my head in the way. So now that I've got all the pieces in, I'm going around, I'm just looking for any little glue pieces. This is the guy I warned you about. And he's gotten off a little bit. These others I can kind of push up against. You know, this guy's gotten out of whack. Oh, I got some glue oozing out here. So one thing, if you can see any glue or light spots on your cuts, maybe you had to sand a little bit of something and it took off this darker edge, a little trick is a black Sharpie or dry erase marker or brown dry erase marker. Probably would work even better. I had one over here for a while and I'm not sure where it went. But I do have a black one sitting here. So I'm just double checking everything. One trick is I'll flip over, look to see if anything's standing out, that it's really off, and I don't see anything there. So we did pretty good. And this is ready to dry a little bit. One thing I will talk about, not too bad usually on the smaller pieces, but sometimes on the bigger ones, especially when you get like a long piece, on that 11.5 inch one and a skinny piece, you can kind of get one end that pops up. So it's sort of a warp, or sometimes your wood's a little warped, and we want to clamp things down. I use these clamps that I just got off of Amazon. This one's a little more heavy duty, this one's a little smaller, but sometimes you clamp one end and the other end pops up. So one trick that I use, I have scrap, a little box of scrap back here that I will use, and sometimes you can cover an area so different pieces of scrap fit differently on different pieces. Clamp on this end, clamp somewhere over here, this probably isn't the best size piece, clamp somewhere else, and that will hold down both of those pieces so you get a better adhesion with the glue. Or if you're sure there's no glue oozing up, put a piece of wood over it and put a book on it or something heavy for a little while, just to get that flat all the way across. But I think we did pretty good here. Everybody's adhering pretty well. We can probably set this aside and work on the base. So the base comes in 3 pieces with a jig. So you cut the jig out of whatever you're cutting your backer piece out of. And that is because it's the same width. And this will help us put this together and hold it in place. And this is a really tight fit. I used real wood instead of MDF, or real wood plywood instead of the MDF for this one. So this is a tighter fit than say this one, which is an MDF one. So I might be a little concerned about this, but I'm going to show you my trick when things are just a little bit too tight there. I get these little sticks. They were super cheap, also off of Amazon. They're sanding sticks. So they're basically things of sandpaper with like foam in between that have been cut into strips. So the sandpaper's on 2 of the sides. And these are perfect to slide in here and just take that little bit extra off if needed. So I'm not going to stress. It does fit in there. It does fit a little tight, but that's actually perfect as long as we get this in straight. So for these, I did pre-sand a little bit, but I always go over these edges a little bit with sandpaper because these are going to be harder to sand once it's all put together, is the only reason why. And you're not going to see the little char marks that are on those edges because we're going to cover it up. This one you will. So I might want to, although this part won't be as hard to sand down. get some of those char marks off of these edges because they're going to be a tiny little area here in a minute. The other thing I wanted to point out is that my cut is not in the center this way of the pieces, and this is on purpose. This is because once it's all put together, well, I put it together the right way. That's what you have to watch for, is to make sure your skinny side and your fat side are lined up on each of these. Once I put that together, and I actually put my Tree of Life in there, I'm going to have things glued to the front of the backer. And at this point, based on those front pieces being 1/8 inch, it will be centered. So this is just a little exercise in the center of gravity. Might not make a difference, but I would rather be balanced than having something fall over. So I'm just going to put the glue straight on here. Same thing, Titebond. Stick my little jig in there, make sure my fat and skinny sides are going the right way. And if they are, you're going to have an even step all the way around. And one more time. Going to go right over that. Hopefully we don't have any glue seepage, because we don't want to glue our jig into the base here. Clean off any glue that might sneak out from in between these. This one's pretty straight. Sometimes I might get that little warp and want to clamp the sides down. This one looks pretty good. I'm going to slide that piece up and down, make sure there's no glue sticking to it, and we're going to set that aside and let it dry. Come back here, all my pieces have stayed in place, and we are done. We're going to let that dry, and it's actually fairly dry now. I probably will wait a little longer before I sand and spray it, I don't want to wiggle any of these pieces off if they aren't fully glued down. So I may wait overnight for this one because it is a little late right now, and spray those in the morning. But hopefully this file will be up shortly, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are just coming across the video and you're not part of my Facebook group, you can definitely join. We'd love to have you. It's Sebon, or Laser Love with Sebon Designs, and that's S-E-B-O-N. And so far it's been a really helpful group, and some great projects and some great pictures of what other people are making, and just sharing that creativity. So thank you so much.